You are asking me this inventory here. Now remember, if I take stock, what I see is true. So we always assume your stock take is the right amount. Okay? The only time you will change on that amount is if, so remember, if they give you adjustments, né? So they give you adjustments like this. You always assume that the adjustments follow on each other. So if they give me an adjustment, say in the fourth dot, you assume the adjustments before that, né, happened before this adjustment. In other words, let's say for instance, they gave me an adjustment of stock returned, né, whoever, the debtor returned it to us, and then they give me the inventory, the closing inventory, and they say trading stock is 1,000. Then this already took that into account physically. In the books we still need to do this, right? But if I go to the storage room, that stock is back. It's lying there because it was returned. So when I counted it, it was there. Okay? So, but if this thing came after that one, so in other words, I counted the stock 1,000, and now they give me adjustment that stock was returned. The stock was returned after I counted the stock, and then I need to subtract. Does that make sense? So you always assume that the adjustments is given to you in the order how they happened. So if stock is stolen right here at the end, then it means that stock was stolen after the stock take. So you still need to take it into account. Oh, where am I? You mustn't let me do stuff like this on video. Here we go. Okay. So are we fine with receivables? So can you see, under no circumstances do you just go and write an amount in there. Because there's so many amounts that make up that amount that the chances are quite big that you forget one of them or that you add up wrong. Ne? So this note has to be visible to the marker. So if you feel, because this is quite big, we are used to working on A5s. Ne? We are used to working on half the space. So this is quite big for you. So I think you can fit all in there. But now let's say you are feeling, oh no, then you make a star and an arrow and you go do it here. And you just say here at the top receivables, and then you start, and you don't have to write debtors, less this, plus this, you don't. You just write amount. Okay, and you guys fine. Or if there's no more longer space, you see page, and you see here's page 7, and maybe on page 8 there's a lot of space, like here. So you see here page 6, there was a lot of space left. So then you say, see page 6. Okay. Must I do provision for bad debts with you? Okay. Provision for bad debts works like this. So I have a debtors control. Let's say my debtors control is 10,000. Now I have provision for bad debts. Say 200. Okay? So in other words, what I'm saying from this is I'm saying my assets for debtors, what I'm supposed to get is 10,000. But I know not everyone is going to pay me, so I'm going to make a provision. It's like depreciation. Yes, my assets I bought for 10,000, but they're not worth 10,000. So I assume that 200 of that will never be paid. Okay? So my debtors is in actual fact only 9,800. See, 10,000 less the 2, it's 98. This is what my debtor's asset is worth. Okay. But now, through time and experiences, you want to change this. Even if you say, I'm always going to have a fixed percentage of 2%, your debtors change. So then you have to, this amount will be adjusted every year. Okay. So now, how do you adjust it? It can even be adjusted more than once a year, as soon as you set up an income statement, which you can maybe do every 6 months if you want to. Okay. So now they will say to you, adjust provision for bad debts to 3% of debtors. Okay. So your process is like this. You take your debtors control. You times it with 3%. Right. So, in other words, 10,000 times 3% gives me 300. Now that 300 is my new provision. In other words, if I'm doing my balance sheet face, it will no longer be 200, it will now be 300. Can you see the consequence if you are only doing the face? You had 10,000, ne? Less 200, which is wrong. It should be 300. So now you can just scratch it out and make it 300, ne? Or you can go, look, what is the difference? So now I subtract, ne, the old provision. What was the old one? It's the one in the trial balance, the 200. So I subtract the 200, it gives me 100. Can you see the 100 is the difference? And in this case, it's positive. I'm making it more. If I'm making it more, it means I make the expense more. This is going to be an expense. So if I have to set up an income statement, I will subtract an extra 100. It will be an expense. If it was a minus, it would be an income. This works like this because I say new less old. If you say old less new, this would be the opposite. Okay, so just make sure what method you use. I always choose a method and stick to it. I like doing it this way because then it works like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Okay, they just follow. So, can you see, where do I need to add the 100 to the 200? You see, so it makes it even more less. So now if I go here, I can just say less another 100. Or you can say less 300 and ignore that. That's your two options. Or you can say less bracket 200 plus 100. That's all your different options. Are you sharp?
We like, okay, we look at this like after getting the...
Okay, now the other thing that they can do is they will not tell you, oh, it's 3% of the debtors. They can tell you any part of the information up to there. So if they say to you, increase immediately, telling you it's an expense, ne? The provision to 300. See? Increase to 300 means that 300 is the new one and the difference is an expense. You get that? Okay? They can also say increase, indicating it's an expense. Can you see why I prefer to say new, less, old? Because then it works with the wording that they give. Increase with 100. Then it's the adjustment. Can you see the difference?
And then we add.
No. Then they're giving you that answer there.
Then go to the
Oh, and then you have to add it
In
to
the
the
balance.
old one
Mhm.
to get the new one.
Okay.
So if they say 2, they already give you the new one.
Then with you added.
And if they say with, it means they give you the adjustment.
Okay.
Okay, so just learn to read it right. And in grade 12, 9 out of 9.2 times, they ask it this way, not this way. Okay. But they can throw it back. What if they say the provision for bad debts is 3% of the debtors, but they give you the 300 and they don't give you the 10? They can do that. They can take anything away. And then what do? UK. Then you say 300 times, you know the 300 is 3 and the debtors is 100. Okay. Don't let them throw you with asking things in a different way than you really know already. Just go back to what was the calculation originally, and now I just need to reverse it. Because their big thing at this stage is that they want to test if you understand the concepts. Because it's very easy to learn and to study papers over and over again. They always ask it like this. So now they're trying to get out of that trap, because you have so many papers. So what do? Instead of asking you to calculate the answer, they give you the answer and you have to work it back. Okay, so don't be scared of stuff like that. You actually know how to do it. Okay, any other question on receivables? So now I go to cash. So the first important thing, cash, easy. Petty cash, cash float, savings, bank, if it has a debit balance. Downstairs, bank, overdraft, if it has a credit balance. Please don't, if it's a bank overdraft, go and subtract it from the cash. That's wrong. You have to, it's got its place. If it's negative, it goes there. And can you see, you can have an overdraft and cash, because you still have cash float and petty cash. And then, of course, also extra is that part of the fixed deposit that matures also can go there. Now, I want you to see here that this is actually something you can study. No? Please get comfortable with the balance sheet. Don't be uncomfortable with the balance sheet. So, now I total. So this guy and this guy gives me this guy. And immediately you know this guy also equals here. Okay. So now, let's quickly go look. Ordinary share capital. Obviously, my ordinary share capital would be basically my note that I just transfer. Okay. I just want to, because I'm here, when they ask you the balance sheet and the income statement these days, they basically want to test your ratios as well. Okay? So always remember that, so they like testing ratios. So be aware of your ratios. The first ratio, because all your ratios is basically based upon the balance sheet. So they can actually test any ratio here. So, but the ones they like to ask, now let's just quickly think about it. The first ratio that's actually very logical is your solvency. Because solvency is your total assets to total liabilities. Okay? So if they give you your total assets, né, and they tell you it's 2 to 1, you can calculate your total liabilities. So if you already got your current liability, you can get your non-current liability, or vice versa. Or if they give you all your liabilities, you know if you add it and you calculate solvency, you can get your total assets. The other ones is they like to use current assets to current liabilities, or your asset test ratio, which is the current assets less the inventory to current liabilities. Or they give you both, and then you have to know, oh, the difference between the current ratio and the asset test is the inventory. You guys see that? So please be aware of the ratios they can use here. Okay? Shareholders' equity. They can give you the NAV. If you have the NAV, you can calculate the shareholders' equity. Because what is NAV? Shareholders' equity over shares. She over shares. Okay? And then, because you have this one, you can calculate your capital. So just be aware what's wrong.
That's smart.
They are very smart. These people who set up these things, they're not me. They are very smart. And they always think out of the box. Okay. But there is examples like that. Go again, I'm saying again, go to those first 3 or 4 exercises we did when school started, the beginning of your life as grade 12. Go look at those 4 exercises. They actually do cover a lot of this. Okay. So let's go to loan. So the loan, you guys, get into the habit to always get the closing balance. So if I have my T account for loan, let me explain this to you again. My T account for loan has got an opening, a closing, a bank, and an interest. Okay, this bank, so let's say my opening is 100, ne? And my closing is 70. Ne? Now, I know I paid back on the loan 30 Rand. Okay? Now let's say my bank here is 40. Then it means my interest is 10. So what is the information? In the trial balance, my loan will be 60. Why would it be 60? Because they literally say, in my books, I will not know what my interest is up until I receive the loan statement. Okay? So, in my books, the only thing I've shown is my opening balance plus that which I pay every month. So, in other words, the 100 less the 40. So, can you see that 60 doesn't include the interest? So, if they were nasty or thinking out of the box, and they don't give you they give you the 60 and the closing balance, they don't give you that. Okay? Because we're so used to them giving us a loan statement with an opening, a bank, an interest, a closing. But what if they give me in the trial balance the amount and the closing, and that's all? Can you see that the amount in the trial balance less the closing gives me the interest, the 60 and the 70? It gives me the interest. Can you see? Then also that 40, can you see that 40 is the interest and what I paid back on the loan? Okay. So now, if I go, please remember, you always take the closing balance, in this case the 70, less the short-term loan, and that short-term loan is then also the amount that needs to go in here. short-term loan. You see? Okay, those are connected. And can you see it's the same? Those two are connected because it's got part short-term in it that I take out. These two are connected, it's got part short-term in that I take to short-term. Okay, now, how do I get the short-term loan? These different options. So, the first one, easy, they give it to you. They say, next year we're going to pay back 10 rand, or 30 rand, or 70 rand, or whatever. The second one is that you keep it the same as this year. So in other words, if they don't give you any information, you make this assumption, right? Or if they don't give you any, or if they tell you it stays the same, now I go look. And that would literally be, now, where did I put that? Oh, this side. Can you see? It's the difference between the opening and the closing. It's 30, right? Or it's the difference between the bank and the interest. Can you see that also gives me 30? So in other words, it's the opening less the closing, or it's the payments less the interest, because then I'm left with the part I paid back on the loan. Okay? The third option is the one which is now, these days, the most popular one. And this is the one where they say, your installment is fixed. Meaning you're going to keep on paying exactly the same amount every month. Okay? And every year it's going to be the same. But what does that mean? It means that the part that you pay back on the loan becomes more and the interest becomes less, because your loan is most getting less every time you pay on it. And then they have to give you next year's interest. So what does it actually say? They will say the installment is fixed at 20,000 per year, or 5,000 per month, then you times it with 12, you get 60 or anything like that. And then they say they expect to pay interest of 7,000 next year. Then your short-term loan is 30. Okay. It's actually an extremely easy adjustment. Don't make it difficult in your head. So, everybody happy with that? Okay, I'm going to stop the video.